There is a motel out there with only one room, just one single room that no one can escape from. This place has been abandoned for decades, but nobody dares to step foot inside because of what happened to those who did. The story behind this mysterious motel starts in the town of Sand Hill, located in South Dakota. Throughout its history, the small town was mainly known for farming and ranching. However, during the early 1900s, things started to change when gold was discovered in the Black Hills, which led to an influx of fortune seekers. Soon enough, Sand Hill saw an increase in population and businesses began to pop up. By the 1930s, Sand Hill had become a bustling town. It was around this time when the Stardust Motel was built. It was meant to be just another roadside attraction that would help travelers refresh during their trips. But the motel quickly became infamous for all the wrong reasons. In 1947, a man named Harry Street accidentally shot himself while trying to hang a picture frame. The bullet entered his brain and he immediately collapsed. He was rushed to the hospital where he died several days later. His wife, Helen, was so distraught over the loss that she checked into the Stardust Motel. She was hoping to take her own life by shooting herself. However, before she could pull the trigger, the police arrived at the motel and burst into her room. They found the gun in her hand and assumed she had already taken her own life. When they turned off the lights, it seemed as if she were already dead. So the police left the body in the room without bothering to check a pulse or even look for a breathing. Helen's body stayed in the motel room for hours until it was finally discovered that she was still alive. Helen survived the gunshot wound, but it left her paralyzed from the waist down and unable to speak. After recovering, she sued the police force for negligence. She also spent the rest of her life confined to a wheelchair. The case eventually ended up in court, and the jury ordered the city to pay Helen $20,000 in compensation. That would be equivalent to roughly $240,000 today. This was the first of many strange events that would unfold at the Stardust Motel throughout the years. Countless guests claimed that their rooms were haunted, that they heard footsteps, voices, and screams in the middle of the night. And some even said they saw ghosts roaming the halls. Eventually, the motel earned a reputation for being the most haunted place in South Dakota. But the supernatural activity was nothing compared to the bizarre circumstances surrounding the motel's next victim. One night in the late 1960s, a young woman checked into the motel. Her name was Julie, and she was traveling with her boyfriend, whose name was Jack. The couple had recently graduated high school, and they decided to go on a road trip across America. They planned to travel for several months and visit all the iconic landmarks they had learned about in school. But just 2 days into their adventure, Jack and Julie had already gotten into multiple arguments. And as soon as they arrived at the Stardust Motel, the fighting continued. Julie wanted to stay at the motel because she had heard great reviews about it. But Jack thought it looked like a dump, and he didn't want to stay there. After arguing for hours, Jack stormed out of the room and went for a walk. Julie was furious at him, but she was also scared because she knew that Jack would never listen to reason if she called him to try and talk it through. Instead, she went to the front desk and asked the owner to please call her a cab. She told the man that she couldn't stay at the motel because she was in a fight with her boyfriend. The owner agreed and gave her a few dollars to pay for the taxi. However, when he asked her what room number she was staying in, she realized that she didn't know. See, the couple had driven straight to the motel after leaving Wisconsin, and since neither of them had ever been to South Dakota before, they got lost. When they finally arrived, they were given a key and shown to their room without any indication of the room number. Now, as Julie stood at the front desk, desperately trying to remember the room number, the owner became increasingly irritated. He was getting ready to close up shop for the night, and she was wasting valuable time. "Ma'am, I've been over this with you 5 times now," the owner snapped. "If you don't remember your room number, then I'll have to assume that you're lying and you're not staying here." "I am staying here," Julie insisted. "I just can't remember the room number." At this point, the owner had reached his breaking point. He grabbed the key and headed toward the door. "Then let's find your room," he said. They walked down the dark hallway together until they came to a room at the end of the corridor. The owner opened the door and flipped on the light switch. It was empty. Then they walked back down the hall and tried the next door. It was also empty. Just as they were about to give up hope, the owner unlocked the third door. Inside, Julie found a pair of Jack's shoes, but when she turned on the light, she realized that the room wasn't hers. In fact, it didn't look anything like the room she and Jack had stayed in. It was clear that Julie and the motel owner had made a terrible mistake. She thanked him for his help and promised to pay for the room the next morning. But when she turned to leave, she realized that the owner wasn't behind her. She called out to him, but he didn't respond. So she walked back into the room to look for him. As she searched around the room, she noticed something strange. There was only one door, and when she turned the doorknob, it opened up to the hallway. To her surprise, the other side of the door was identical to the side she had already been on. No matter which way she turned, she always ended up facing the same wall. She ran to the window and screamed for help, but nobody came. She tried to break the window with her bare hands, but it wouldn't budge. Finally, she sat down on the bed and cried herself to sleep. The next morning, the owner of the motel awoke up in his bed. He had no memory of the previous night, but he knew that he had helped a young woman find her room. He went downstairs to see if she had already checked out, but he noticed that one of the doors had been damaged. He opened it and stepped outside, only to find himself staring at a brick wall. He called the police and told them that someone had broken a hole in his wall and escaped. But when they arrived, they found no evidence of foul play. There was no hole in the wall, no sign of a struggle, and no runaway guest. To this day, the mystery of Julie's disappearance remains unsolved. Some say that she simply checked out and moved on with her life, while others believe that she's trapped inside the motel, forced to relive the same day over and over again. What's really going on at the Stardust Motel? If you ask the locals, they'll tell you that the entire town is cursed. After the discovery of gold, greedy prospectors began tearing down sacred Native American burial grounds to set up their tents. This angered the tribe, and they put a curse on the town. Ever since then, bad things have happened to everyone who has lived there. Others say that the whole story is just a myth. But one thing is for sure, the Stardust Motel is no longer standing. It was torn down several years ago, but nobody dared to step foot inside before it was demolished. And if you look closely at satellite images of the area, you can still see the shape of the motel and the weird circular pattern of the parking lot. Even though the motel no longer exists, people still report hearing gunshots and screams coming from the area. And sometimes at night, they see the ghost of Julie running through the cornfields nearby. Some say that the best way to avoid the curse is to stay away from Sand Hill altogether. Others say that the only way to lift the curse is to destroy the motel. But either way, it seems like this mystery will never be solved. But now it's time to hear from you. What do you think really happened to Julie? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I've been your host, and we'll see you next time.